So he just puts everything, he just writes a program. Instead of you have to move from left to right, he moves everything right to left. So those sort of a program, he just changes every sort of a thing and puts it up. So they're not actually meant for actually stealing something, they just want to have fun. And this is basically malware. Most of the malwares are basically found in gaming apps. Basically you have ads in all the particular apps coming in the cases, right? You don't know if I have an ads coming in and that has one of the particular script and you click it, right? It can happen unknowingly. You'll not come to know it. But for all these sort of stuffs, right, there are anti-threat tools what's available, which will allow you to actually understand and see if you have any vulnerable or you're getting any hacked information. And plus additional thing is the major and the important stuffs what is very much always possible to hack is man-in-the-middle attack. That's another called spoofing and spyware. And this is possibly happening when you're connecting to a Wi-Fi or a Bluetooth, which is accessible to hackers. And when you're coming to 4G network or LTE network, right, it's going to be in a bigger area. Even if there is going to be a dedicated IP address of an operator, if I can access that particular sort of a thing, I would be able to easily get it off. There are ways to script the data what goes from my phone outside. The one thing what we cannot avoid is stealing of your phone. Okay, that is something out of the topic of discussion. If the phone is stolen, there is a method called for jailbreaking or rooting. Android and iOS has a different term. So basically they go in depth on your particular phone, try to hack all the information or try to root it, try to delete it off all the particular things so that the operator knocks it off. And that is how they actually get some of the data, and they actually basically most of the particular phones after rooted gets resold so that the track is actually lost, right? So another one sort of a thing, if an hacker, if somebody gets access to your smartphone or any sort of a particular thing, they can elevate a privilege. The privilege is like Android, iOS, right? They have user privilege and their kernel privileges. That is, kernel privilege is something what they prevent. You don't get access to it. And once you get access, that's called jailbreaking or rooting. Then itself you can elevate the privilege so that you have access to every sort of a particular file that they avoid it to you. If you are actually over there, and that's basically a Linux OS on the bottom for both the particular thing, you install a PuTTY or an SSH sort of a client over there, then you can have, you're having an iPhone 3, you can have a latest update of iPhone without even doing any upgrade in hardware. That's possible. That's one of the aspect of elevation of privileges. What can actually happen with your phone, and even with app also. If you have installed one app which gives you two separate version, level 1, level 2, level 3, if you are able to jailbreak that particular app and get those there are still lots of reverse engineering codes which you can actually do it, or you can actually elevate and get the full permission, so that there is an app with having a free version, there is an app having a paid version, but both the thing would be having the same compiled, they will not provide access to you. If you actually do a reverse engineering code, everything, there are some tools what can you do it up. So you can actually take the free app and have all the features enabled what the paid app provides you. That's as simple. That is possible using elevation of privileges. Okay, and denial of service attacks, probably not much of existence into 2G or 3G networks, but definitely in 4G networks or Wi-Fi if you're connected, right? DOS attacks is possible, where I can actually deny your service. I can actually hijack your session, basically in any case, and make sure that what connection you're trying to establish, right, never gets successful, so that I can take the transaction and do it. These are some of the top ways for the hackers, and they are more intelligent than any of us. They can have more sort of a particular information on how to hack. Okay, but these are some of the things what has occurred, and what we know it's caused higher casualties. Right now, what do they expose? Obviously, like top free apps, right? It basically collects information. Why would they give an app for free for you? Right? There should be some hidden agendas, either to get something from you or either to improvise their app and do it up. Nobody is there in this particular business to provide free service, right? So they collect all the information. See, when you actually have observed, I probably believe everyone has installed some or the other apps once you have purchased the phone. So when you install an app, right, you have lots of clauses. This app would actually like to access this information. And we don't worry about it. We just go, yes, accept it, just install it, I want to play it up. And now once you install it, right, like he gets access to all the things. There are some apps which actually ask access to your photo files. You know, you need to be cautious, like, why would you allow an app to access your photo files? He can, if he has access to your photo files, that app can send your photos to his servers. I mean, I'm saying this is a particular sort of one example. What I say, like what could be done. Privacy data, especially if you're actually going with the free apps, which actually asks those information to be installed, which is really not necessary for it. So we'll take an example. If you're installing a gaming app, why would a gaming app need a location? If it is a standalone app installed on your server, unless you're going to play with 3-4 players on the particular thing, right? So from the chipset level itself, right, informations can be cracked. If you ask me, how can you keep your mobile phone safe? I can only put one word: remove the battery. If your battery is there, your mobile is still unsafe. For any of the particular thing in the chipset, it will be catching some informations. If it doesn't have power, then it cannot actually do it. As and long your battery is there in the phone, it's vulnerable, even it is switched off. That is from the chipset, because that connects to the battery, gets the information, gets those sort of a thing. So if you really want to make sure that your devices are safe, plug out the battery. That's the only one way. That's from the chipset sort of an angle what actually goes. So we actually, when a particular system from the chipset, there are lots of compliance sort of a standards which comes up, which you cannot actually navigate. So that's completely secure. When it comes to the protocol thing, even it has some standards, conformance, everything is secure. When it comes to the application part, right, there is no standard. How can it be secured? When there is no standard, when there is no regulations, when it is free, right, out of 1,000, 10 fellows can do something, right? When it comes to the kernel level, or like say Apple OS and iOS, they may be very stable, not at all a thing. When it comes to the application, there is no regulations. It can always perform the event what is not intended for, right? So these are the areas of the particular thing when actually testing it, right? We'll have to be ensuring, making sure that if your application is actually installed and working off, not the particular, the certification area is one of the major aspects what actually gets into those particular thing. And even interrupt, like what Mr. Amitabh said, that's also one of the major sort of a thing. Now, the application when it is there, it should not give out the information which other apps can actually take it off. And all of your handset, it's mostly predominantly native applications or hybrid application rather than browser based. It's very tough to actually access browser in your phone. It actually consumes a lot of bandwidth too. It's going to be native or hybrid. So this native and hybrid, right, it stores the information on your phone and pushes it off, right? So the storage of information, pushing it, you have to be more careful of getting the right encrypted algorithm or making sure that it doesn't leap up. Like you have protocols in your TCP/IP things by which you can actually exploit it. If you come to the 4G network, right, you have IP. So that has a protocol. You have a secured SSL thing in that particular thing, SCTP transport, what can actually go off. But the application layer, that has to be embedded. Those sort of a testing you'll have to do. I'm not talking about the business functionality testing or user interface testing. That is what your application does. But if you're actually encrypting your application in some other protocol, right, it's going to consume too much of bandwidth, too much of thing. It's going to be slow and responsive. How optimized it's going to happen? And believe me, I don't have a solution. People are working on that thing going to. So we follow a crisp architecture. We call it as a crisp because there are a set of tests which, since we have our own IPs, we were able to develop it in the cases, so which is not easily accessible any of the commercial test and measurements tools. So using this sort of a thing, we created those sort of a framework which actually addresses both the chips and the protocols as well as app. But app, to be saying frankly, we cannot actually cover the full sort of a particular thing, but we make sure that sort of a particular thing, it covers the known vulnerabilities. See, actually as OWASP, which defines the standards, basically a non-profit for the web thing, they're still struggling to find what are the top 10 or top 20, how the mobile thing can happen, because it's more vulnerable. So that's going to take some time. So what we are saying is like, you'll have to make sure that the app what you're actually going to use and install from the ground level be safe and be secure so that it doesn't expose in a particular larger state, right? Now I'm going to touch upon the tools, okay? See, these are almost 90% of the tools are open source, okay? You can take it off, try it off, except the sniffers, right? The Nessus network spoofer, don't try those things because that is going to hijack your network operator. There will be some compliance or certification. Apart from those things, you can actually try all these things to make sure that the application, what you are actually going to test, when it is totally onto the mobile areas, right? Using these tools, right? It is not vulnerable. People are not able to expose it, right? And there are a couple of tools for reverse engineering. And this tool, right, should not allow something to get your code obfuscated back to the particular things, and you can modify those sort of things. So these tools are really handy, and this is something what can actually defend on a level 1. I'm not talking about the network level things, on a level 1 to make sure that the app what you are testing as such is up to an extent not vulnerable. If the device is in the hand of an hacker and he jailbreaks it, it's vulnerable. If the device is not with the hacker, if it is not jailbroken or rooted, this can actually avoid almost 90% of the stuff. And there is another thing like most of for the content management thing, VP Scan is a very awesome tool to actually check it out, because this basically is a open source content management thing, and people actually plug in DLLs into those things which are even vulnerable also. Without knowing, you can get it off. So they have an internal tool which actually safeguards to actually use those particular things. And what to look out for, I mean, just a particular sort of a coverage in a particular thing. Now the riskier apps, what can be the riskier apps? The apps, as I mentioned, like, okay, which collects information of your photos, names, address, all those sort of things, which is not relevant. I mean, maybe now I was just hearing today morning is saying that if you want to log in your income tax, there is one website HR document to just log in for the free. Another question, what benefit he is going to get by giving you that access? When income tax, India itself has an open source free website. It's going to collect information somewhere, right? So you'll have to be a bit double cautious then what is the advantages of using this fellow and going over there. So those are things. In-app purchasing, this is one of the hottest thing what's actually happening off, and all the OS gives off. Within an application you can actually purchase it. I would not say you cannot avoid it, but be safe, because there is no mechanism to ensure that your data or information, right, is not vulnerable. Okay, and the apps which do not have to go into this sort of a thing are all inbuilt apps like your alarm clocks, local nodes, app that doesn't even talk to the IP. All the information is stored in your phone. Those not necessary to be security tested unless you don't lose the device. If you're losing the device, I really don't know how to actually get the particular thing, but those are not one thing what I would really stress to undergo a proper CRISP model of security testing. The ones apart from that thing which actually collects those stuffs. And to takeaways, Facebook is one of the biggest applications which is always vulnerable, and they have a very good team which actually does this thing every minute and then to take out. The user base is huge. People try to exploit it a lot. Right? If the user base is small, people won't even bother what is a particular problem. So the bigger the user base, if you want your application to be used by millions of users, be sure that if your application is not vulnerable to all the particular thing, it's not going to be successful. And avoid avoid using Wi-Fi network in the public thing, because most of the downloads, which is huge in size, the OS itself allows only to download using Wi-Fi network. It actually doesn't allow you to download through your connections. So when you're using the Wi-Fi and you're downloading this thing, so be a bit more cautious thing on to which Wi-Fi, or if you're in airport Wi-Fi, can be there. I mean, hackers sit over there. Basically, literally, yes, to be saying, to get informations, right? And lost devices, no solution for lost devices apart from the thing that MDM is which you can wipe out the particular data, that's it. Apart from that thing, there is no solution. You can register with some of the MDM providers, control that thing. If you're lost, if you have all the information, just clean it off. And use VPNs. There are lots of, there are no open source VPN methods. There's all paid VPNs. It is worth for if you're actually having all the informations in your particular thing, right? To communicate or to interact, to do your work, basically. I mean, if you're in a business sort of a field, probably you would need a phone which can do all the work. So use VPN, it's worth to it off. And for authentication and sessions correctly, there are a couple of tools over here. Probably you could actually take a note about WCNGT and Google OAuth. So these actually would actually help you to actually make sure that authentication sessions, right? Because see, like in 4G, it's all radius. The diameter is the protocol what uses for authentication. It's all based on IP. So I can even connect that thing to radius server and exploit it off. And complicate reverse engineering. You have tools which can actually allow reverse engineering. It's basically the job for a developer to complicate the reverse engineering. It should not be an easy. I'm not saying it's not possible. I mean, everything is hackable. Even your bank security locker is hackable. But the more amount of time it takes to hack, that's what it differs of. So make it complicated. Not have to be simple that